We're here. This is a View from the Bridge, official podcast of the Belfast Giants for kingdomofthegiants.com. Today's Wednesday, the 12th of October, 2022. My name's Patrick Smith. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you can download us, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, and a load more of your normal podcast providers. On this week's show, a mixed week of games for the Belfast Giants in League and CHL action. We'll discuss those three games shortly. The fan agenda will be a simple affair. We'll be just taking your questions and asking to the panel. We'll look at the winner of the month award for September, sponsored by Phonicab, maybe a bit of news, not least a bit out of Glasgow. And the Blazers are our guests at the SSE Arena this weekend with two games, one game at home, one game against over there in Coventry. Mr. Majimsey, you cold?
Cost of living crisis, Paddy. I logged on to I got an email from my energy provider today, and they told me how much my energy bills had actually tripled. So I haven't braved putting the gas on yet this month. So I will just have to put the hat on instead.
And back with us for a bit of a cameo, hot on the heels of his trip to Sweden, Mr. Simon Kitchen. How are you?
Don't be expecting too much tonight, gentlemen. I am knackered.
Absolutely busted, mate. A flying trip to the North Pole.
It's not all the boys. Look, I wasn't even playing. But you get the gist of exactly what players have to go through to do what they do, and it literally is just about travel, rest, play, rest, recuperate, get ready for the next game, and a 2-day trip to Sweden and for CHL, and that's the price of success. Obviously, winning the league last year and then ending up playing the Champions Hockey League, which is where you want to be. But it's a tough trip for any, but not just the Giants, for a lot of teams as well. But it is what it is.
Well, you're here, mate. It's good to have you back, even if you are a bit busted. We'll do this as quickly as we can to make it as painless as we possibly can. We will get to the games very, very shortly. But unfortunately, and it seems to be the last couple of weeks, but unfortunately, we actually start with another piece of sad news. We learned this morning of the passing of the longtime commentator of the Belfast Giants, and a giant to us all, Mr. Wayne Hardman. Davy passed away.
Yeah, Paddy, I don't know, for those who believe in like the universe sending out the vibes or whatever, I woke up, I think it was either last Thursday or last Friday morning, and I can't explain why, but I just had Wayne Hardman in my head. And as I say, I hadn't been thinking about him prior. Sent him an email and it bounced back, and I knew that he hadn't been really on the computer much. He had a stroke in 2017, so I sent Louise just a text. And I followed it up with a phone call to Ronan, actually. And Louise came back to me about an hour later and said, look, Wayne had taken ill on holiday and he was in hospital, actually, in Exeter. So hence that triggered the little tweet I put on last week. And we were able to send him lots of messages, get well soon messages, and best wishes from a lot of people that knew Wayne from back when he was more involved with the Giants. And unfortunately, Louise phoned this morning just to say that things hadn't worked out with Wayne. And he had passed away very, very sadly this morning. And I know that you can be glib about these things and say he will be missed, but we have missed Wayne over the last number of years when he hasn't been about. We've thought of him often. We've talked about him on the podcast at times as well, and we'll remember good times of Wayne. One of my favorite things about Wayne was being in the press conferences at the playoff weekend. He would always get first question every time. Yep. Didn't matter who the game was, what it was. Wayne would have and it would be a long question. And sometimes you'd have a coach who just got defeated there, sitting just going, right, come on, get to the point here. And Wayne would more or less be breaking down the game for him rather than really asking a question. But, he knew his hockey inside out. Obviously came to the United Kingdom years ago, ran a hockey team in Brighton, ran an American football team, the Brighton Bombers, or the B-52s in Brighton as well. And then obviously when he came to live in Enniskillen, that run up and down the road a couple of times, sometimes, or 3 times a week, maybe at times, would he come up and he would sit there with Gary Gillespie and had some brilliant comments about when they used to hand the cookies out and different bits and pieces. But Wayne will, like we say, once a Giant, always a Giant and all. And I don't want to be glib about it. Wayne will be remembered. And he was just a great character amongst some great characters that we've been fortunate to spend time with in the Belfast Giants.
It's funny you mentioned that. I think about the press conferences at the playoffs. It was one of the first things that actually came into my head when thinking about Wayne and about about how it used to be really, really long questions, but very knowledgeable questions, and he always had chats with the players. He had chats with the coaches, and he showed his passion for the game. And Simon, obviously, you inherited that with regards to being on Giants on the Giants commentary, and you followed on. You did a bit of commentary with Wayne.
It was actually Wayne that contacted me. He came down to, he came to like the Ireland team games, our team Ireland games, when we played in the World Championships, and he actually went to Iceland in 2006 as well, and he did a bit of commentating for, I think it was an early webcast back then, and he asked me would I get involved and come down because Gary Gillespie wasn't available all the time, and I said yeah, I'd give it a go, and it's Wayne's fault that I'm murdering names on a weekly basis. He used to come out with some crackers as well. But I always sort of, unfortunately, when people pass away, I always sort of look at the good times more than the bad times, if you know what I mean. And unfortunately, as I say, he's no longer with us. But that's Neil Whiteside sent me that photograph today. And I remember sitting there doing the games with him. Obviously, we didn't have the luxury of doing it in the suites at that time, and you had to do it from in between. I think it was doors 6 and 7. Look, Wayne is an absolute legend. He's the nicest guy, and as Davy and yourself said, Paddy, very, very knowledgeable. I just learned what I do now from Wayne, to be honest. He's sort of looking at the notes that he's taken, and you've seen it in the last video clip there, just a few wee notes about each player and what have you. It's his fault that I'm on Belfast Giants TV and every other fan base in the country. So, well done, Wayne.
It's very much one of these that, like, from my perspective, and maybe yours as well, Davy. When you move away from Belfast and in the years that have gone by, your contact with the Giants has been yourself says doing the commentary, and as you went back, not just when it went to video, but even when it was just audio, when we were relying on what was basically radio commentary coming from the SSE arena, and it was like it was Gary and Wayne, or it was Nigel and Wayne, but Wayne was always a part of that and always a voice. Then when you look back at, if you can get some of those old clips, it's Wayne's voice that accompanies a hell of a lot of it, and it's Wayne's voice that you tie into a lot of those early days of the commentary, of the coverage of the Belfast Giants when you could actually get it. And we are very privileged now, I'd say, to have webcasts from right across the country. Now every team has a live webcast at last, but back then there wasn't many, and Davy, Wayne was the voice that accompanied that.
I guess the Giants were a bit of a trailblazer for the league, always happening, and will lead and other teams follow, and that's it's flattery, I suppose, for the club. But I remember listening to a game, following IH update and listening to it on like 52k dial-up on a train in South Africa the night that the Giants, it's the famous Jason Ruff and Stay Down fight with Darren Hurley where Jason Bowen got hurt. It's a bit of a Donnybrook against, I don't know whether it was you, Says, or whether it was Gary Gillespie, and I remember Wayne talking about it. And, again, I said earlier on, we'll have a drink tonight to Wayne, whoever has one there. If you want to send a wee picture, if you want to send a message in, we'll get them all to Louise. And, I know at this time that her knowing that the Belfast Giants fan base thought just quite so much of Wayne has been a real comfort to her, because we talked just the other week about Jim Gillespie, and we talked about make sure people know while they're here how important they are to you. Doesn't matter what they are in your life, just make sure they know how important. And we were fortunate enough to be able to let Wayne know a little bit of that last week. So, from me and from the AVFTB boys to you, Wayne, and thank you.
Cheers, Wayne. And with that, we move on to the actual games. The Belfast Giants return to Elite League. So that whiskey actually just went to the back of my throat. It's nice though. The Belfast Giants returned to league competition with a trip back to Dundee. Funnily enough, we've spent a lot of time over there, but it was a 7-1 win for your Belfast Giants. Sanch with the only goal for the Dundee Stars, with Cooper, Goodwin, Cooper again, Goodwin again, Rupp, Conway and Bast scoring for the Giants. With regards to goalkeepers, Jackson Whistle and net for the Belfast Giants, 26 shots against, 1 goal against. And for the Dundee Stars, Anton Svensson started the game. He only lasted 43 minutes, 36 shots against, 5 goals against. He was replaced by Bryson Priest, who played 17 minutes, 15 shots against and 2 goals against. Referees were Graham Roger and Andy Dalton. Davy, after a bit of a cagey first period, it was one-way traffic for the Belfast Giants.
Yeah, a bit like CHL action with other teams. The Dundee kind of hung with us, I thought, quite well. But then we scored goals. I think twice in the game we scored in bunches of 3 in quick succession. Goal. And just the goals either side of the end of the second period, start of the third period, really broke the back of the game. I think at 1-0, Simon might agree, might disagree. I think at 1-0, probably the game was over. And it was a bit like the game the other week. Once we got the goal, I don't think we looked in any danger of losing the fixture. But good to see, goals spread throughout the lineup. A couple of helpers coming from the back end as well, which is good to see. I think Gabe Bast over the course of the last 3 games is something like 20 plus shots on target. So, he's getting warmed up at the back end. And, it was good with West coming in between the pipes. It allows us to play that extra import. Though I think did Jeff Baum set out Saturday night? Says yeah.
Jeff Baum and Angeli.
Oh, I thought Angeli played on.
Sorry, you're right. Angeli did play Saturday.
Angeli played Saturday, Sunday. But I thought it was a comprehensive enough win without going into too much detail, because we'll have plenty of Dundee Stars games to analyse over the season. I thought the way we scored. The goals in those 2 wee quick bursts of 3 goals, just, we can take games away from teams really quick.
I think that's it, Simon, is we can take, when we are on our game, and especially we saw that like one of the game against the Glasgow Clan last week that you commentated on, and this game, and when the Giants do get into that role, then we do take games very quickly.
Yeah, but again, it's bursting the bubble. You just need to get the first goal. And this league this year, and again, it looks like that was an easy game, and all intents and purposes, it was an easy game against Dundee. They're short on bodies. I believe they lost another guy for the season on Sunday night against the Steelers. So it's been a tough start for Mace. He's one of our mates, and even though he's in Dundee, and it's his first coaching job, and I wish him all the best apart from when he's playing us. But this league is so stacked this year. It's a level crossing, if you want to put it that way, because there's going to be teams the whole way through the season that are going to take points off people, maybe apart from Glasgow. But it's just, I expected a tougher task going to Dundee on Saturday night. And it was great to see that, as Davy said, yes, there was goals throughout the lineup, but ultimately it's the first line that's getting, I think they had 11 points on Saturday night, Davy.
Yeah.
And they can't keep doing that every single game. The rest of the lineup needs to step up. Yeah, Gabe Bass got a goal, and but there's other guys throughout the lineup that need to step up. And that's not just me saying that. That's they all know that. They're all professional hockey players. They all want to get their points out of the roster and the lineup, and they all want to play, which is the best thing. And unfortunately, Adam's got to leave 2 out every night, and we've got that luxury so far this season. But this is a long season, and you can't just keep depending on your so-called top line to score all the points. So hopefully, it's something in the not too distant future that we do start to pick up extra goals right the whole way through up the lineup. So again, wasn't really much of a test on Saturday night, and obviously led into Sunday.
Just watching the replays there, Paddy, as they come around, and we've scored similar goals this season, and we've also, when we go into Sunday, although I haven't clipped the goals against, we've conceded similar goals at times as well. You have that one where you come down the half wall, round the back of net and out in front. And I think it's Gilbert the other week scores it and Sammy Rupp scores an identical goal there, comes out just into the bottom of the circle, and he pops it into the far top corner over the top of the glove hand. So there's little things that we're doing well. We just have to connect the dots a little bit, and we'll talk about that, because I know me and Simon were talking last night about the CHL and connecting passes, and that's so important. But depth will come. There's quality in the depth, and it's just for Adam just to find those guys going together. You know, Goody, Collins, and Coops are going well together at the minute, and there's green shoots from other lines. But Simon says they're paid to put the puck in the net, so it's just up to Adam to find those combinations, and it'll come good.
The highlights of this game, of course, I think we'll leave that there because, like you say, we've got a lot of games against the Stars, which we'll analyse, but the highlights from that game are available online from our friends at Stars TV. And we'll move to the next night, and it was the first league game at home for the Belfast Giants and the first visit of the Guildford Flames. Unfortunately for the Giants, it was a 4-2 defeat at home. Conway and Macaulay with the 2 goals for the Belfast Giants, with Cronella, Tedesco, Eriksson, and Markland scoring for the Guildford Flames, that last one being an empty net goal. In nets, Jones with 23 shots against, 3 goals against, and Eamon McAdam with 50 shots against and only 2 goals against. Referees were Pavel Hallis and Andrew Jarvie. Says, I look at those shot counts, and you can't help but think McAdam had an absolute stunner every game.
He played very well. Celebrated like he won the Stanley Cup, to be honest, but he played very, very well. Made important saves at important times. And let make no mistake about it, this Guildford team's a lot better than it has been for a long, long time. They're fast. They're relentless. They played, I think they played, was it Thursday, Saturday, Sunday? They get beat by Cardiff the night before. What are you looking for your pen for?
I've lost my pen in true Simon Kitchen fashion.
You're a gimp. But I thought they played very, very well. They sort of just kept coming at you, and the speed that they have coming through the middle, and that was very impressive. And for us, it's I actually texted Davy during the game. Unfortunately, didn't see it. That's the first time they ever beat us at the SSE Arena.
Yep.
Was that their first win at the SSE?
Their first win at the SSE Arena. I was 99% sure that when I was doing the commentating, but I always like to obviously check with Davy, and I just didn't have time to check the fixture list that we had through. But yeah, it's the first time they've ever beat us at home. So we've got a very, very good record against them. We ended up beating them 6-0 last year, but they're a different team this year. They played very, very well, and unfortunately, we just couldn't get that that tie-up goal for to make it 3-3. And when we scored to make it 3-2, I was sitting thinking, man, what a really nice goal that was from Colby out front, the high slot, and tipped it home. And when we got that, I'm sitting hoping, what, we've got a chance here. We've done it already 2 times this season at home, coming back from behind to take it to overtime and in the Challenge Cup. And I was hoping that was going to be the case, but unfortunately, just one trip too far. But I actually thought the boys looked a bit tired on Sunday night. They've played a lot of hockey. They've done a lot of traveling. And as one of them said this morning, thank goodness that AHL journey's over, because we can just concentrate on domestic competition now. So, well done to Guildford. They played very, very well. But as I say, we'll be ready for them next time for sure.
Davy, they are a strong team. I've noticed a comment here from Matt Patton saying, like if Tate for the Flames has some set of wheels on them, they do have that speed and that ability, especially on the wing. And they are top of, obviously they've played more games than most people, but they've won 6 out of their 8 games, and they sit top of the Elite League at the moment.
I'm going to test says number 6 for the Flames says
Lalonde.
Can't remember, but he makes a great play in the first goal. He comes down around the circles and goes around the back of his net, and he feeds it to Tate, and Tate's gone to the races. Gets right down the right wing, and they did it quite a lot during the game. They collapsed us to one side of the ice, and then hit us on the other side of the ice with the third man coming in. That first goal has gone down behind our net, and the D-man has had to go and make the play. Actually, we talked about it on Saturday night, but in watching in retrospect, he has to make that play. But their third man coming in is just in the slot all alone, scores the goal. So they turned us a lot, and they used a lot of speed and transition. They used, would you call it cheating? Says, they gambled more than cheated. They left a man high, and if we turned the puck over, which we've been guilty of doing quite a lot lately, you turn the puck over and bang, the stretch pass was away, and they were in. They took their opportunities. Somebody texted me the other day, are Guildford the real deal? Hard to say, because we've only played them once, and it's still early in the season, but they are better than what I've seen from them in a number of years. And, and a team that comes, we've talked about on the podcast about our own team, speed kills in this league. And if you've got players that have got speed and skill to burn, you're going to struggle against them. And as Simon says, it's been a difficult time in terms of these European trips. We're not like a Skellefteå where we can play on Saturday night and charter a flight to Belfast and arrive Sunday morning and have a couple of days of skating or sightseeing or whatever they did before they play on a Tuesday night and then take a flight out the next day. Simon's tell you, where we were in Dundee on Saturday and then having to travel back Sunday for the game, having a day, and then did you leave Monday?
Yeah, first thing Monday morning.
So you traveled Saturday, traveled Sunday, traveled Monday, played Tuesday, traveled Wednesday. The guys must be exhausted. It's just, if you were doing that for your own job without having to try and play a hockey game in between, you'd be exhausted. So hopefully a couple of days rest here. I've got to do it all again on the weekend in these domestic games. And sorry to labour a point, but 2 points, and we say this often over the years, 2 points in October in the Elite League is as important as 2 points in March. So you just don't get a chance to take a night off.
How frustrating, and I know that a lot of people have highlighted, we're not new, and I know Simon is the leader of the fan club, and rightly so, a great player, but how frustrating was it to see Ben Lake take a roughing penalty at that point in the game when we're 3-2 and trying to get back in the match, sis?
At the time, I'm sitting thinking, we complained a lot last year and maybe the year before when people are taking liberties. First of all, that was a bad hit. That was a really, really bad hit. I'm surprised there's been no supplementary discipline from it, to be very, very honest. That hit is not unlike Ben Lake's hit last year in Coventry when he got through out of the game and he got suspended. So I haven't seen anything from EIHL yet to say if that is the case. With regards to Laker doing what he did, as soon as he did it, I think he realised, you know what? And in fairness, the other guy went down as if he was shot by a sniper from 200 feet. So, but that's what you get. You get suckered into doing that. Laker sticking up for his teammate. And maybe in hindsight, he, had a better chance of getting that power play and maybe getting it tied up. But look, it's a long, long season. Ferguson, in my opinion, should have been more than a 2-minute penalty for sure, and then we would have ended up on the power play. But again, referees say things differently, and unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But I think Ben would have held his hands up in the dressing room. He's big and bold enough to do that. I think he would have held the dressing room. Guys, bad decision, but I don't blame him for it in one bit. I think you know what? I'd have done exactly the same myself.
Davy?
I'm okay with it. Obviously disappointed it ended up with, I think we went 4-on-4. We've put the goalie, hasn't worked out for us. Game's changed. And obviously you've got the suspension rules as well, where you fight in the last few minutes of the game. We'll talk about this as well the other night, Simon. It's not like you can just go in there and you have you probably have the fair dig, Stephen Nolan one there, but you can't just be having that. You can't be having those anymore because one, Ben Nick gets through out of game, probably gets a suspension for instigating, etc. So what are his options there? Because he's really just bumped him. And as Simon says, he's gone down. He's skidded over to go, you can't do that. And he's given him a little bump and he's got a roughing penalty for it. So it's one of those. Simon's articulated it very well. I'm sure he's probably disappointed with the outcome. There's long memory in this game, and the guys have taken a number there. Unfortunately, nobody's taken an injury, which is the main thing for us. But yeah, I'm not going to be hypercritical of it because it was one of those instant. It wasn't like the red mist came down. He knew what he was doing, and unfortunately, these things happen.
Do you know what? What if he didn't hit him? And we got somebody else takes another liberty. The guys say Ferguson shouldn't have done that. It's a bad hit from Ferguson. He threw the right knee out on Chad Butcher coming through the middle at speed. Injuries like that, or potential injuries like that, can end careers. And it was not a good play by Chad Ferguson. So if he didn't do it, we're slagging everybody off for not sticking up for their teammates. And for me, that's not acceptable.
The thing is, Simon, if the game is changing and the game is clearly changed, if you just look at the stats on fighting, if you like, fighting stroke roughing within the game has changed. It's faster, more skilled games. So that's where referees and DOPs have to protect players, because if players aren't allowed to kind of police the game as they've done for many years, if they're not allowed to police the games themselves, it's up to the referees to police the games, and if they miss it, DOPs to step in. For me, that name isn't a 2-minute minor. So I don't even know if DOPs can review that. There's no injury in the play. I don't know what the actual.
Don't think they can.
Whether it's even reviewable. He's got away with one there, but he mightn't get away with it forever.
True. The highlights of this game are from our good friends at Belfast Giants TV, and it's time to move on because the Belfast Giants had one last game that they played in the last week, and that, of course, came last night in the Champions Hockey League. It's the game against Skellefteå in Sweden, the one that's left Simon down for this podcast to end soon so he can get back to bed. Delighted to be joined by the voice behind the mic on the commentary throughout the CHL and for your coverage on Premier Sports, that is Aaron Murphy. How are you doing, Murph?
Hey, fellas, how are you?
Doing really well. Thanks for joining us, mate. Let me just bring up the statistics for the game. The Belfast Giants took a trip over to Sweden and they faced Skellefteå. Let me just find out where I put that. There it is there. And it was a 4-1 win for the Swedes. Muller, Sandberg with 2 and Lindstrom with the 4th. And Kobe McCauley getting the only goal for the Belfast Giants in the second period. Murph, I'll start with you on this. Obviously, there were quite a few changes happening in the Skellefteå team. And, but still, it's a team of high quality that took on the Belfast Giants.
Look, those guys are first in the SHL. I mean, a lot of people would argue the second best league in the world. So doesn't really matter. They've got kids at under 18s and under 20s who play the exact same system as they do on the senior team. So I think they had 2 16-year-olds, 2 17-year-olds, an 18-year-old, and a 19-year-old come in, replacing 6 regulars. The likes of Tom Kuhnackel, former Stanley Cup champion, didn't play. But, I mean, the goalie was 18 years old as well. And you can't tell me, other than the full face cage, you wouldn't have known that those were kids. Like, they play like men. They play the same system down in the U20 setup for Skellefteå and the U18. Some of them played U17s for Sweden last year. So, I mean, they're class. I mean, there's 5 or 6 of those guys will be NHL draft picks over the next few years. So it didn't matter who was in the lineup. The Giants were going to be in tough there. That's a tough building to play, Kraft Arena. I mean, Sis knows, he was there. They're in first in the SHL for a reason, and that's a fortress for them most nights, and certainly the Giants played hard. I thought the Giants were great 5-on-5. Power play never really got going in the CHL, which might have been their undoing to some degree over the 2 games against Skellefteå, because they had every reason to think they could have got something out of the game, especially at SSE Arena.
Simon, as Murph just said there, you had the benefit of being there in person and seeing what that arena is like, what that team's like. What was the difference in the game?
They scored 4 goals. We only scored
Thanks,
1.
Mate. Thanks, mate.
Okay.
Welcome back, guys.
It's staying out of the penalty box, mate. I think it was 9 minors we took, or 3 of them were incidentals. But the challenge that you have is, as Murph's already said it, I mean, the facilities these guys have, just look at that goal there. It was a mistake coming through centre ice by us, and what a finish by the kid. But they've got quality the whole way throughout the lineup. I mean, they've got on that site where Kraft Arena is, the 3 ice pads in the space of, you could fit them into half the SSE car park. And that's just, it's ridiculous. The kids that played there, there's the number 5, I can't remember his name. Murphy would come up with
Axel Sandin Pellikka, probably the best player on the ice over the 2 games.
I was speaking to one of the management team from Skellefteå last night, and she was telling me that they're expecting him to go high in the first round of the draft pick. And watching him last night doesn't surprise me in the slightest. The kid is absolute quality. He's so calm on the puck, and if we just watch these guys move the puck about, and yes, we make it easy for him by taking the penalties. But as Murph's already said as well, 5-on-5. We did not look out of place on this game, and we did not look out of place last Tuesday against them as well. We could skate with them, but it's just the power play, 3 power play goals last night. Jonesy come up with some big saves, but take nothing away from Skellefteå. They are absolute quality. They're sitting at the top of their league for a good reason. They could really go. They could go on and win this tournament this year, to be honest. I think they've got a really good chance. They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
They certainly, I mean, you look at that team, and to bring in 6 teenagers, but all 6 of those teenagers are as good as the ex-NHL players and the ex-Stanley Cup champions that were sitting. And it's interesting that you bring up Axel Sandin Pellikka, because Colin Shields last week said to me a few times, this kid's the best player in the building, and he's 17, and he's better than Joachim Lindstrom. He's better than, like, it's unbelievable. He's better than Petter Granberg. So imagine when he's 18 or 19 and he's got another few years of bulking up. And I mean, his skating is unbelievable. But I mean, even the goalie last night says, I mean, you watch that kid, he's 6'2", he's 18 years old, and he looks like a senior goalie. He moves, he makes the right plays, he's up against the post. There was a play where Coops is shooting for the pad because he knows Conway's there, and he thinks, like, if that's in the elite league, Conway's going to hammer it home. But there's just no way to score on guys like that. And it's just, it's funny because when you think, oh, they're going to bring in 6 teenagers, you might be okay. But I remember being in Sheffield a few years ago when the Steelers were in the Champions Hockey League, and Frölunda left Joel Lundqvist and everybody at home. Frölunda took a charter to Sheffield that morning, and it was their under-20 team. And I heard a few geniuses in the building in Sheffield say, oh, we're going to have a chance to beat these guys tonight. They brought the 20-year-olds and the 18-year-olds, and it didn't matter. Sheffield didn't have a chance that night because these under-20 teams in Sweden are special. They're different, just different gravy altogether.
David?
Paddy's muted there. He's asking a question, but his microphone on.
I'm glad he is muted because I thought I was.
Do you know what? I was chatting away there, and I was just basically talking to myself, and I forgot I took the mic off. Davy, what I was going to say about 5-on-5 is the fact that, as Murph had said, 5-on-5 last week we spoke about how well the Belfast Giants had played against this team, and again, I agree with Murph. I thought 5-on-5 we were giving them again.
I guess these are the positives that Adam and the organisation will take out of the whole CHL trip, is that, 5-on-5 for large majorities of games that we skated with some of the very best teams in Europe, and we gave them games 5-on-5. I guess the special teams has been the story of the CHL. I think doing the stats earlier on, I think we've taken over 20 minors in the sort of ones that Simon would describe as, not, I hasten to say the lazy ones, but the hook and the hold and the trip, and the ones, if you keep your feet moving, you mightn't take. But against these teams, they just are always moving. And you get, we talked last night there, power play, the differences between the difference makers. Every single pass is tape to tape. Those guys do not have to adjust to take a pass. Whereas maybe at the EIHL level, and when we get on power plays, sometimes it's slightly into the skates or slightly stretched just ahead where they're just not getting, and they just need that little microsecond that they're getting more than we are. And I think over the course of the CHL, I think we conceded 8 in the power play and we only scored 1. So special teams, you can't give these penalties away and or you're dead. And that's kind of going to be the story. But yeah, we can be proud of the adversity of the trips we face versus these teams. We talked about, Murph's talked about as well, charter and flights in and being well rested to play against us, where we're flying out of Dublin at 4:30 in the morning to, for a 2-day, 3-day, 72-hour trip to Sweden and back, after facing, a weekend in Scotland and having to come back and play a game on Sunday. So it's difficult to go Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. Sounds like I'm making excuses. I'm not, but this is the real world that the Belfast Giants are playing in versus the team in Trinets or wherever it was with a swimming pool in their locker room. There's levels to this. There's levels to this game in the CHL, and unfortunately, we're just down at the bottom at the minute. But you've got to aspire, you've got to attain for that greatness. And we went into it looking to win 6 out of 6, and we've came away with a win. We've won the face-off battle across the course of it, against some of the best teams in Europe. 52% of face-off across the course. So there's little things to take from it. I think we can be proud of the 6 games that we put in.
I think that's a really interesting. Sorry, Sis, go ahead.
I just think that, it's not just last night and last Tuesday 5-on-5. I thought that all 6 games 5-on-5 we skated with every single team, Trinec and Davos, and we didn't look out of place. But it's that, the way they move the puck around the outside and it's trying to get the puck off 5 guys who are just really confident, and a lot of them have been playing together for a long time, and then especially in Sweden, there's a lot of guys there who just know each other's game inside out, and you just don't realize how much energy you put into, stop and start and turning around, keeping your head on a swivel, trying to basically pick up where the puck's going to because it's moving about that fast. And it's not just Skellefteå yesterday, but it's Davos and Trinec. These teams, Trinec basically take a month off a year and they skate 11 months of the year. That's what the quality that they're up against. I can say 5-on-5, we did not look out of place against any of these teams. Yes, when you make mistakes at this level, you get punished, and that's what beat us. Especially, wasn't it Trinidad scored 3 goals in the space of like 4.5 minutes in the first game? But that's what you're up against, and that's what you, as Davy says, that's where you strive to be. You want to be in the Champions League, and you deserve to be in the Champions League by finishing first in the league in the EIHL. So it was an experience that one of those ones that you want to take part in. You want to see where you are level-wise. 5-on-5, we're there. Under that, with regards to taking guys off the ice for penalties, that's the challenge.
I think that's the wider discussion as well, especially coming out of that. Obviously, Belfast Giants have now had 2 forays into the Champions Hockey League, and of those 2 forays, they've had 2 wins, both against Czech opposition at home. And the question comes, about benefits, and there are questions about, of UK teams taking part of the Champions Hockey League, and you want to be part of that top table. You want to take part of it and test yourself against the best. But overall, is there a benefit to that, Murph?
Look, I think it's a great recruitment tool. I've heard people say various things. Oh, well, it really has no benefit. It costs money, this and that. But I think if you say to a guy, you look at Conway or Cooper and those guys that maybe were looking like JJ Pickenich, well, what's out there for someone like me? And you look at what's on the table, and Adam Keefe goes, yeah, but you're going to get to play in the Champions Hockey League. Come back to us, and I'm going to make sure you're on that first power play against some of the best teams in Europe. You're going to get to play against the likes of Davos, or you're going to get to go and see that beautiful building in Davos. So these are recruitment tools. But also, I mean, I think all of us know it. Guys want to pit themselves against the best. I mean, most of these guys maybe played some NHL exhibition games, or maybe had a cup of coffee in the NHL. But like when you're in the PremierSports Elite League, you probably don't think you're going to the NHL. But if someone says to you, you got a chance to play against the best team in Sweden or the best team in Switzerland, that's a really nice benefit of going and playing for the Belfast Giants or the Cardiff Devils in the past, or the Nottingham Panthers. And you look at it, I think some of the best moments that we've had in that tournament from the EIHL entrance are those magical nights. And there was nearly a magical night last Tuesday when you led 2-1 after 40 minutes. The game against Trinidad, I mean, for me, that's a magical moment that I won't forget, because that's when I realized that Peyton Jones is the real deal and probably a pretty good replacement for Tyler Besker-Awani. I mean, a 10-round shootout, against Trinidad, it's unbelievable. With ex-NHL players bearing down on him. I mean, for me, little things like, I know the Macaulay goal last night. I mean, he's not going to be taking anything from that. It's not he's not going to take personal goals as a positive. But how about the screen by Kieran Long? How about guys just embracing the moment? I mean, Kieran Long doesn't show up on the score sheet, but Kobe Macaulay doesn't score if Longer's not posted up in front last night. I mean, Kieran Long wore the top scorer jersey at a home game. These are moments that players aren't going to forget, right? And it's important that we remember that, a lot of these guys never thought NHL was a possibility, or even playing in the SHL. And now all of a sudden on a Tuesday night, you're in the building of the SHL's #1 team, and you're scoring goals and you're competing 5-on-5. And I mean, Peyton Jones has cemented himself as probably one of the best goalies in the Elite League on the back of that. So I think the benefit of it is it far outweighs the negative of the travel and the expense and all that. I mean, you talk to any of the players, Cooper, Conway, those guys, they would have loved that last night.
Davy, says anything to add on that?
I just wanted, Murph was talking about their 18-year-old goalie. So we're sitting watching him warm up last night. And to be very, very honest, he was letting everything in the warm-up. And Decker was sitting beside me, and he says, are you watching this? And I'm going, hi. I says, he's nervous. He's making another thing about Murph. I don't know if you'd mentioned this. It was his debut. He's making his debut in the CHL as an 18-year-old for Skellefteå, who are leading the league in the SHL. So, you're sitting looking at it going, this, fair play to this kid. Like, he's obviously got something. But in the warm-up, we're sitting looking at it going, we've got a chance here. We really do have a chance. And Decker will come out with a lad. He says, he's actually looking a bit like me out there. And I said, Dick, stop knocking yourself down. He says, no. He says, but that's the way to treat me in practice and warm up. He says, they just score past me and then all of a sudden the kid comes up and plays the way he did. So look, Skellefteå are the real deal. I genuinely think they've got a chance of winning the league there, win the SHL. SHL and the CHL this year. They're a top team. And as Murph said, like you want to be at the top table with the teams of CHL, and we were. That's the second time we've done it now, and hopefully the next time out, the next season will be great.
It's interesting you say that, Sis, because I think they're taking it much more seriously this time around, Skellefteå, than a couple of the tournaments in the past. Because the best they've ever done in 7 trips to the CHL is, I think, 2015, they made it to the semifinals. So they've never been in the final. And in the course of that, they're making SHL finals. They're winning SHL titles in 2013, 2014. Go to 6 straight SHL playoff finals. They look like the blue chip team, but they've never been able to transfer that over to the SHL. I talked to some colleagues in Sweden, and they said to me, like, pretty unfortunate that Belfast drew that Swedish team, because they really had the sense from the coach and whatnot there that they're really taking it seriously this year. The coach in Skellefteå was the assistant coach in Frölunda for years, and he won a CHL title with Frölunda as an assistant coach, and apparently he's hell-bent on winning the tournament this year. So you're up against a team that's taking it 100% as one of the things they want to accomplish this year.
Murph, we appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, it'd be remiss of us not to talk about, obviously, the coverage that's taken place over the course of the season, how you feel it's going, and how you feel the Elite League started.
Yeah, no, the Elite League is good, man. I talk about Peyton Jones. I think you guys were talking about Eamon McAdam earlier. Like, the goaltending is really good this year. I mean, Ben Bounds is back in the league, so it's been fun. I really enjoyed working with your best mate, Colin Shields. He sees the game so well, so I really enjoyed that. Angela Taylor has been a lot of fun. Coach 80 was on last week in Sheffield. What a game that was. Guildford are for real, as you guys found out. It's interesting because I think Paul Dixon doesn't get the credit he deserves in recruitment and the way he coaches. He brings in an offensive defenseman and he lets him be an offensive defenseman. He doesn't bring in an offensive defenseman and try and break him down and make him something he's not. So I think that the Guildford Flames are interesting. I think that I was talking to a colleague at PremierSports the other day. He goes, why haven't the Giants played a league game? And it's interesting because we're all used to the Elite League and the intricacies, and I had to explain Challenge Cup and Champions Hockey League. And it's funny because this time of year, even people who are in the sports game are like, what's going on with the Elite League? Why the Giants haven't played a game in the league yet? So I kind of laughed because we're all in it. We don't even look at that as an anomaly anymore. But yeah, no, it started well. The coverage has been a lot of fun. We have a new production company this year. They're really keen, and I've really enjoyed working with a couple of new voices like Sheds.
That point you brought up about we played one Elite League game in the league, and I think Guildford have got 8 now. Cardiff have got 5, and I think that bit needs to be addressed. Everybody should be told to concentrate in the Challenge Cup, to get the Challenge Cup done and dusted before Christmas, for argument's sake, instead of letting it draft on. But we've had this conversation before, Paddy.
Well, we've had that question from Neil Brandon there, just basically saying, ask Aaron if we need a CC overhaul, Challenge Cup overhaul next season. Prefer going to toe with the league, not being several games behind. Do you feel that there needs to be a bit of overhaul?
Yeah, look, last year was tough because the Glasgow Clan weren't ready to go. So I thought maybe there'd be some sort of change this year. Some would say that the Glasgow Clan aren't going in the Challenge Cup right now either. The way they perform, they haven't been good. But I think for me, the Challenge Cup, Simon just hit the nail on the head. I think it has to be something that has to be over earlier in the season, so that the league run-in is much more paramount. And exactly, I think. But look, I've talked to guys in the league and I've talked to people in that boardroom. Not that I'm allowed in the boardroom, but I've talked to people after they come out of the boardroom. And I said, I understand why things happen because there's availability of buildings. There's all this stuff that they'll tell you because it's a fact. But I think there needs to be an overhaul, and there has to be someone in that boardroom who can come up with an idea. I'm sure if the 4 of us sat around with a couple of pints, we could probably sketch out something. But for me, it has to be over earlier. It drags on. And how you have teams already qualified and teams that have only played a couple of games, and then you look at the league, the Giants, at the time I was talking to that guy, they hadn't played a game in the league. So I think it just makes for head-scratching moments. I understand why it happens, but it doesn't mean I have to like it, and it certainly doesn't mean I have to think that we have to keep going the same way with it. But I think there definitely needs to be an overhaul, yes.
And we were talking earlier on in the show about the sad passing of Wayne Hardman, Murph, and obviously, yourself, Simon, doing play-by-play calls. Wayne did play-by-play for many years for the Belfast Giants, and it is sad to see that Wayne has now left us.
Condolences to his family. I didn't know Wayne as well as you guys, but I've got some good Wayne Hardman stories from the old Irish Ice Hockey League. Says Wayne used to come down to Dundalk, and I think the Dublin Rams were playing the Dundalk Bulls or the Dundalk, whatever they were called. Vitas Lukasevicius, the Bulls, yeah. So Vitas Lukasevicius, who's a linesman now, does a lot of games at the SSE Arena. He's a linesman now in the PremierSports Elite League. But I remember he cut across the middle of the ice, and I caught him. I probably was just too slow to be in the play and just caught him with a hit, probably trying to make a line change. Anyway, I hit Vitas and took a charging penalty. And on my way to the box, I said something. I won't tell you who the referee is, but you probably could guess because he knew about as much as hockey as my old laptop here. But I got a call. I went to the box, and on my way to the box, I said something to the referee. Well, I didn't realize, but Wayne Hardman was in the penalty box. Now, he wasn't doing timekeeping or anything. He was just in the penalty box, sitting there watching the game. And when I got in the penalty box, I took my helmet and threw it down, and it nearly hit him. And I just heard this gravelly voice, which I recognized instantly as Wayne. And he said, you're from Canada. Have some respect and show some restraint. And I went, you know what, Wayne? You're absolutely right. But you know what? What do you think I'm acting like here? He said something like, oh, you're acting like a savage or something like that. I said, you've not been to George Street on a Saturday night. You don't know what savage is. And we had a great laugh. I think Wayne had probably had a beer or two and come into the penalty box to watch the game. But I had a couple of exchanges with Wayne during those fun Saturday evenings in Dundalk, and he was a gem. He was always kind to me. And I remember the playoff final weekend press conferences. I remember Doug Christensen sitting there once going like, Wayne, you've been talking this question's been coming for half an hour. And there's other people there. I think I was working for ESPN at the time. And I'm like, I just want to ask a question and then go file the story. And I just went, you know what? I'll just wait for Mr. Hardman to finish up. And
20-minute long questions.
I always had a lot of respect for Wayne, but it was about a 35-minute question on that probably was just breaking down period by period. And Doug Christensen was like, whoa, I don't need to do any video. You've summed it all up. But a lot of condolences going out to his friends and family and those around the Giants that knew him well. I saw that news today. You posted a picture, I think, Sis, and I think I commented, but I always had a lot of time for Wayne. And in fairness, he always had a lot of time for other people in the media. He always had a hint or, a bit of a quip or whatever, maybe try this or whatever. And I'll always remember that night in the penalty box in Dundalk because I spent a lot of time in that penalty box, and it was nice when Wayne was in there to keep me company.
It's one of those things, mate. Yourself, Simon, Wayne, the play-by-play is not an easy thing to do. It's a small group of people who are able to do it and do it well. And Wayne was one of those. And we're sorry that he, like I say, that he's now left us. We appreciate that you've joined us tonight, Murph. Obviously, next week it's the game between the Belfast Giants and the Cardiff Devils in Cardiff. And that's going to be a big game live on Premier Sports. You tell us about that quickly.
Yeah, we're going to be live next Friday, October 21st from Ice Arena Wales, 7 p.m. pregame show. Colin Shields will be with me that night to give a goal scorer's perspective. I think that's an intriguing matchup because Cardiff had struggled a little bit in the Cup, and now we're going good in the league and seem to have picked it up in the Cup. But those two teams don't like each other, right? Let's be honest. I mean, the Challenge Cup final last year went down to the wire. Playoff final went down. These are two teams. It's the cream of the crop. It's a heavyweight matchup, to coin an old phrase. Early on in the season, it's a Friday night game, prime time. I mean, the storylines, I'm sure Killer will be loving seeing Sheds come through the door. And, there's just such a connection between the Devils and the Giants. So I can't wait for that one. You can check PremierSports.com. There's also an offer code right now if you're not a Premier Sports subscriber, Elite 80. Go to PremierSports.com, and when you go all the way through the subscription process, at the end you punch in Elite 80, so you can get 12 months of Premier Sports for about £6.50 a month, £80 for the year. So for a month you get it for the price of 3 Simon Kitchen webcasts. So it's a pretty good deal. NHL live every night, of course, with that subscription. NHL Live every night with that subscription, and all the big Premier Sports Elite League moments, the Challenge Cup final, the playoff final week, and all that sort of regular stuff. So yeah, if you're not a subscriber, get in there now and get it while it's going, because there won't be another offer, is my guess, once the season comes thick and fast. But yeah, Montreal, Toronto on TV tonight as well. So it's fun. It's back, right? We're back, and I know Sis will be up watching the Leafs. Austin Matthews is going to score 60 again this year. But it's that fun time of the year where we have Cardiff versus Belfast, we have Montreal versus Toronto. And you know what? That's a nice way for me to say thanks for having me on. Wayne Hardman would have loved these matchups. He would have loved this. This is the time of year when hockey fans sort of sat up and take notice. So I think we should all raise a glass to Wayne tonight and enjoy some really big matchups in the coming weeks, whether it's on Giants Live TV, at the rink, where it's best, obviously, at SS Arena, or on Premier Sports. So yeah, it's a good time of year, and I think Simon will feel the same way. It's an honor to do the play-by-play role, but Wayne certainly was a trailblazer in that regard in this region.
Well, no better way to finish there, Murph. Thank you very much for your time, and I think you might even see Davy next Friday, Davy.
I'll be down. I'm actually bringing a former US Marine with me, a guy I've met in Bristol who's just bumped into him, was chatting to him. And so, do you like hockey? And he's like, field hockey, or I says, there's only one kind of hockey. And he goes, oh yeah, I'm from Colorado. I'm like, you might not have heard them. They're called the Avalanche. And I was like, yeah, actually,
never heard them. They never win it. Never win it.
I do a little bit for a hockey team, and we're actually playing the nearest rink. I know there's one in Bristol, but the nearest rink's in Cardiff, and there's a game on the 21st. Put it in your diary. So he did. So I'm going to take him down to the rink and take him in the EIHL game for his first time.
Well, you know, it'll be sold out.
Are you sneaking across the border USA Marine style?
Maybe. I'm driving. But I'll bring a coffee.
It's a good one for him to go to, right? It'll be a good game. I mean, I know he's used to winning Stanley Cups as an Avalanche fan, but that'll be a good Friday night at the Ice Arena in Wales for sure. And I look forward to seeing you, Stats Man.
So send me your coffee order, and I'll bring you and Shedgy a coffee when I'm coming in.
All right, I appreciate that.
Can't say further than that. Murph, thanks for your time, mate.
Cheers, fellas. Mind yourselves.
Cheers, bud.
Big thanks to Aaron Murphy for his time spent so long with us, chatting us about the CHL and, of course, about the coverage on Premier Sports. And like you say, you can get that game next Friday, the Cardiff Devils against the Belfast Giants. We'll talk more about that next week, but you get that in Premier Sports. And, of course, we'll tweet out more information about how you can get Premier Sports for £80.
Paddy,
go on, Sage, you want to say something there?
I am just listening to Murph. I don't know if he's still sitting in the green room at the back, but when you sit and look at Murph on Premier Sports or Free Sports, you think butter wouldn't melt. He was a pain when he was playing. I mean, he never shut up the whole time. Playing in the Irish League, he was chirping away at somebody every opportunity he got. But we played against him a few times and had a bit of banter with him. But my God, he was just a pain in the backside. Always looking to slag somebody off and chirp somebody. I don't think he's as savage as what like Scott Conway is, but he was certainly up there.
Newfoundlander, isn't he?
He's from Newfoundland.
We were just talking earlier on there about Sweetie saying guys going to NHL, and obviously me and Paddy, you're a Maple Leaf fan. Me and Paddy follow the Wings, and the Wings have always recruited well from the likes of Sweden, and still do always take a Swede in their draft pick. So you never know, somebody from Skellefteå could end up in the Joe. It's not the Joe anymore, but what is it now, Paddy? The little
Little Caesar.
Little Caesar.
I was sitting and chatting to Mark Cooper. We did our wee crossbar challenge yesterday morning, and I was sitting chatting to him after. We're literally just coming off the ice in Skellefteå. I didn't know this at the time, but Coops went to NHL preseason with Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay.
Played by the Red Wings and for a preseason. I says, Davy McGimsey and Paddy are mad Red Wings fans. He says, I have a lot of stuff in the house. He says, you might not have it, but these two get hold of you on the podcast. So whenever you get him on, just make sure you ask him about it. He's probably
so join us next week where our guest will be.
New jumper. Give me new jumper next week.
Let's crack on a bit. What have we got? Okay, obviously the lads are knackered because they've had a big trip to Sweden and back. So there's no fan agenda with any of the Belfast Giants. Hopefully we'll get one of the lads to join us next week. We did put out for a bit of Ask the Panel. We've got a couple of questions. I'll just put these out. One of them is from Scott Cameron. He said, Junior Giants under 12s win on the road against Aberdeen and Elgin. Definitely worth a mention, says.
Look, it's great the kids are getting ice time again. It's been difficult here in Northern Ireland because the Dundee IJSL's been closed with a strike. So I think it's been rectified. I think they're back on the ice this weekend. But look, it's always great doesn't matter what age group they're getting. The kids should be playing as much as possible when they get the chance to play. Just go and do it. Enjoy yourself. And going the whole way to Aberdeen and winning, that's definitely makes that bus ride the whole way back again a lot easier, whatever level you're playing at.
We do have, it comes back to that question regards to we put to Aaron Murphy about the Belfast Giants within the CHL. Both Alan Price and Kevin Madden more or less asking the same question. Davy, is it worth the Belfast Giants being in there or focusing more on domestic, or better to be in the Continental Cup with regards to the standard that we play?
I think Simon and Murph talked very, very well about the pros.
Yeah.
For the CHL, the recruitment side, guys want to play in those top competitions, and so I'll go for the devil's advocate route of, one of the very best days that I've ever had in the SSE, the Odyssey, was the final against Ireland a number of years ago, where we're the width of a post away from winning it all. And I often talk about making memories and hanging banners. That's what I'm in hockey for. And we came very, very close that day. We made lots of memories. We made lots of memories in the CHL, but we have a better chance of hanging a banner in the Continental Cup. I don't know if had we been in the Continental Cup this year, would we have kept the Scott Conway as opposed to his opportunity to go and play in the CHL? I don't know, because I'm not at that part of the organization where those things are discussed. But, if we keep a Scott Conway for a season, or a Mark Cooper for a season, or David Goodwin for a season, or we bring in a top-level goaltender because we're playing in the CHL as opposed to playing those 2 weekends in the Continental Cup, I guess I'm going to go with the CHL. I loved the Continental Cup setup, the weekend of competition over sort of 2-3 days where you have an opportunity to take a trophy was really great. So I'm right on the fence now with it, Paddy, because I can see, if I thought that going into the CHL was like the financial windfall that it almost is for the likes of a Linfield, where they come in and domestically they can then dominate year on year, qualify again the next year, get so much money and dominate. But the CHL for the Belfast Giants now, this is only pure speculation. I don't think we're in it for the money.
No.
Simon can correct me if I'm right or wrong. He works for the organization. But I guess that we're in it for the exposure and the games. If anything, it probably costs us money to be in it. CHL or the Continental Cup, I don't think would be any different. I think it's still an expensive, you want to try and host it, which is great to host this Continental Cup game. There's pros and cons for both of it. And on any given day, I could be talked either direction.
I think it's one of those as well. It's the fact that now that we're in it, now that we've been in it twice, that if we go on to we win the league this year, we've got the option to go into the CHL. We can't turn it down now. It shows lack of ambition. It shows the lack of maybe the lack of a spine if we don't go back into it, because you think, oh, we don't want to play it anymore. When you get the opportunities to play on the top table and you make that, you have to go and you have to do it again and you have to do it again. I don't think there's no real onus in the Giants or option for the Giants now to basically say, yes, we've won the league, but we are not doing the Champions Hockey League. We'll pass it on to X. I don't think that's even an option now. One last question we've got from Matt Patton. It's for you, Simon. And what's Kitchy's views in this year's team? Who stands out for him as the most standout player? Who stands out the most standout player so far this season?
Scott Conway.
Yep.
He's been unbelievable. I still think it's early days. It's when you've got 16 guys, 16 imports. Sorry, they're all battling for playing. You're going to pick up injuries. I mean, with a couple of knocks last night, hopefully the boys will feel okay for the weekend. But Scott Conway's just come in from last season with a lot of confidence and rightly so. I mean, some of I just think he's got better this year again as well, and my understanding, I don't think he was on the ice much during the summer. He goes out and enjoys himself, and then when he's time to turn up and putting that in his chest as well has been a really smart move by Adam. He's been really good in the room this year again, on and off the ice, and but he's been absolutely brilliant. I rant and rave about the likes of Ben Lake and Mark Cooper, but with that one player standing out, it's got to be Scott Conway. Was it 13 goals this year, Davy, so far?
Something in around that. I was just finishing the stats off earlier, so something in around that, yeah.
13 goals in probably 13 games. Is it 14 games? It's
14 games we've played, yeah.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. He's been absolutely brilliant.
Hard to disagree with that. Big thanks to everybody who sent in their questions, and we'll get back to normal procedure next week with the fan agenda. Quickly, before we move on to the last few bits of the show, it's the Player of the Month, sponsored by Phonacab. It was announced, it was presented on Sunday, and of course, with 55.2% of the vote, just ahead of Scott Conway, the winner this year. For September was Kieran Long. He was presented on Sundays after Sunday's game against the Guildford Flames. Says I'll come to you first. Longer, any problems with that decision?
No, he's played well throughout the CHL, first 4 or 5 games, and picked up a couple of important goals. And you know what, we Davy's mentioned this over the years, and I think he's deserved to be, in maybe the top 6, arguably, for the way he started out the season. But it's getting that. It's getting that point where you need to be turned up every single game, and Davy's touched on it on numerous occasions over the years as maybe having the wrong passport for him, not getting the ice time he deserves. But the ice time he has got this year, he's definitely deserved it. The ice time that he's taken advantage of as well, and it's good to see a Brit winning the Player of the Month as well.
Davy?
Yeah, I agree with what Simon has said there. I think the highlight goal was it Wayne Davos he scored, or was it Trinidad he scored the Davos? Just couldn't remember that. The one. He scored some crucial goals, and he scored goals right through preseason and into the start of September. So fair play to him. Ice time. I am a great believer in meritocracy. I think you have to earn ice in everything in life, not just hockey, but everything in life. You earn what you get, and Kieran Long has earned the opportunity to play top 6 minutes, and when he gets that opportunity, then as Simon says, he has to grasp that nettle and take that opportunity. You've got to perform as well as you've been performing in the bottom 6 when you get into the top 6, if not better. Those opportunities are about stepping stones and getting those top 6 minutes and keeping those top 6 minutes, because you don't want to be going back down again. So I think he's had a really, really strong start to the season. We talk, and I know, and I don't mean this disparagingly. Me and Simon talked about it yesterday, and the differences, the levels that we talked about earlier. Longer thinking about his career afterwards will be today or tomorrow or the weekend or whatever. He'll be cutting hair, thinking about his career after hockey, whilst holding down a professional hockey career again. And he's playing in the CHL against guys that are on the road to the NHL, not ones that are coming down the other side. So it's so difficult for these guys, but he just has to keep believing in himself. And when those opportunities come, kick the door in.
Well, congratulations to Kieran Long. I thought well worth the win for the first Player of the Month award, sponsored by Phonacab. Big thanks to Phonacab for sponsoring the award, and congratulations to him on being presented the award on Sunday. Briefly, news, there's no DOPS to talk about. I went to see Sheffield against Manchester in Altrincham on Saturday. It was an OT win. I did, yeah. My nephew was visiting. I went to watch
you not like him?
Well, he has to go. Went to watch City against Southampton, and he's a Southampton fan, so they lost that game. And he says, "Can we go and watch the hockey?" So we went and watched Sheffield beat Manchester in overtime, with Dowd scoring an OT winner to make it a 5-4 win. Despite DeLuca scoring 2 goals against his own club on his debut, and loving every single minute of those 2 goals that he scored. He scored one in front of the Sheffield fans, and you just saw the big smile on his face. But yeah, it was a 5-4 win for Sheffield in the end. In Glasgow, on the ice, the Clan can't buy a win. While off the ice, a statement to it. Whoa. A statement from Neil Black tries to explain the quiet response over the week to the goings on that have been happening in Renfrew, but also states he's willing to either sell the club or open the ownership group. There's been a suggestion of a bid from a group of sponsors, but to date, this appears to be little more than a registered company and a hashtag back the bid. David, we talked about it last week. Just Simon, your take. We saw what's happened the last number of weeks with sponsors coming in and out, and the difficulty there. What are your thoughts on what's happening in Glasgow?
To be honest, I mean, we know the story. I'm just Belfast Giants. That's all I concentrate on. I'm not worried about every other team in the league. However, losing a team, especially in Scotland, could be very detrimental. The likes of Dundee and Fife sort of depend on those games. The Clan being a good crowd. A couple of times, 3, 4, 5 times a year, whatever it may be. It's one of those ones where. Be careful what you wish for. I know that the whole situation has not been dealt with to everybody's satisfaction. I'm trying to be careful what I say with regards to being disrespectful to anybody, and then that's certainly not the way I intended. The whole thing's been a shambles, if you want to put it that way, and it's just a matter of doing the right thing. And if Neil Black wants to sell it or he wants to open the ownership group, whatever that means, then that's up to him. It's his business. He's been the one who's putting money into it. But as I say, be careful what you wish for, because it doesn't running a hockey team, whether it's putting your own money into it or looking for sponsors. Sponsors are very, very difficult to come by, and you need to treat them properly. And I'd like to think we do a really good job at Belfast, and there's other teams around the league that do a good job with it as well. And losing sponsors, whether it's temporarily or whether it's for that's it done, is a really difficult thing to take as well, because this sport in the UK is a difficult proposition to sell, if you want to put it that way. Yes, okay, we get coverage on PremierSports, we get coverage on local channels with BBC and UTV here in Northern Ireland. And it's one of those situations where if you get the opportunity to bring a new sponsor along the game, I mean, I'm always at our sponsors, invite your friends, and a lot of people who own businesses are friends with people who own businesses. So, it's makes it a lot easier if they're bringing their mates to a game, and then I just know that they're coming, and I pop in and do what I do to try and make more money and bring more money in for the club and the Belfast Giants. That's the way it works. And when I seen Jerry McLaughlin leaving the Clan last week, that's a difficult one, because he's a good guy, and trying to find somebody who gets on with the sponsors like Jerry does that's going to take some doing. So look, it would be. I know they haven't got off to a great start. When all this happened, and they came in and played, was it Coventry on Saturday they played? It took them to overtime, or Sunday maybe? Took them to overtime.
They got hammered by 5.
Yeah, they need to get a win. Whether they bring in new players or not, they need to get a win, because 9 or 10 games this season haven't got any points on the board. It's a tough one to take, but as I say, it's a difficult situation, and hopefully they get it sorted to everyone's benefit, and hopefully it's sooner the better.
I think it's an excellent point there, Susan, and I totally agree. It's careful what you wish for. I think that yes, it's been a bit of a shambles. Things have been handled badly, and there are people resigning. We've had the resignation of Craig Anderson as well from a media perspective, with the resignation of Jerry McLaughlin from his work with the sponsors and behind the scenes with regards to that club. But and there's been a lot of social media noise, at the sponsors and whatever. Which yes, people are angry about what's happened and the way it's going, but like you say, be careful what you wish for, because ultimately the Blacks have funded that team the Black family has funded that team for 12 years. That team has been going for 12 years on the basis that that family has sustained it. And yes, they now want to maybe open it up. But you see a lot of people saying about how Neil Black needs to go, this, that, and the other. There needs to be an understanding of why they have that club, why they're in this, why they have such a good facility there now that that they're helping to run, and where that haul has come from. Because yes, the incident is unsavory, it's difficult, and there's going to be a lot of people annoyed at what happened. But from a larger perspective, you still want to have that hockey team, from the Elite League perspective, from the Scottish Elite League perspective, and from the Glasgow fans. Because if you get a new buyer, and if that buyer is the wrong buyer and it doesn't go well, you could see the end of that club.
Look what happened to the Scottish Eagles when they left.
Correct.
They thought it was going to take maybe a couple of months or maybe a year to get them back and running again. Even the Edinburgh Capitals. It's great to see the Edinburgh Capitals back playing hockey again. Are they going to get to this level again? I've absolutely no idea. But you just don't want teams. We've got to the stage now where we have 10 teams in this league. You want to expand it. You don't want to make it in 9, 8, 7, 6 teams. You want to expand it. You want other teams coming in. You want other people coming in and investing in the likes of, whether it be, there was talk about Telford coming in at one point. There was talking about Hull coming back in. You want these big cities. You need a team in Glasgow. You really do need a team in Glasgow. You want teams. Ultimately, you'd love to see a Manchester team getting back into the MDN Arena or whatever it's called now. I can't remember what it's called. But that's what you're up against. You need, we need a team in London. You want to get this product out there to expand the whole of the UK and try and get more investment into the sport, because it's going to benefit everybody if that's the case.
There's actually a new arena opening in Manchester as well. It's even bigger than that arena. It's happening.
Is it really?
The Co-op, yeah. Apparently the ownership group are involved with the NHL as well, so don't rule out a team playing an NHL game happening in Manchester. But yeah, the Co-op arena due to open early next year, I think. But yeah. But anyway, yes, we'll move on from that. Thanks for that, Sis. Next week's games: Belfast Giants against the Coventry Blaze, Saturday at 7 p.m. at the SSE Arena and on Giants TV. And of course, the away game, away to Coventry, that is 6 p.m. on Sunday, and that is on Blaze TV. You've had Gareth Martin on the last couple of weeks. Last week, says it's been very entertaining.
Marty's a good lad. We're trying to get the players don't particularly like doing it. Deco thinks he's crap at it. I particularly like Deco doing it with. I think he articulates the game really, really well. And he's a bit hard on himself one time. But Marty's enjoyed it. Graham Walton's been in a few games. Shane Johnson was back online there last week as well. So it's great to have the experience of guys who've played at that level, who basically come in and give their tuppence worth and make it like a wee bit of a product that people want to watch and pay their 15 quid. Never mind Premier Sports.
Of course, Coventry are now coming in. They're sitting second in the league with 12 points, having only lost one game out of the 7 they've played. And tonight they hammered the Coventry. Well, but they were hammering the Snyder's turn. It was 5-3 in the end. The Coventry beat Guildford in the Challenge Cup. Guildford, and another bit of news is the fact that with them dropping points in the Challenge Cup, I believe that leaves us now as top seed in the Challenge Cup, because we were the only teams not to have lost a game or dropped a point. But I guess we'll see as the season proceeds how that Challenge Cup group comes together. But yes, Belfast Giants versus Coventry Blaze, Saturday at 7 p.m. at the SSE Arena, and Coventry versus Belfast Giants Sunday at 6 p.m. at the Sky Dome. If you're not getting to that, you can get that on Blaze TV. Any other business, boys?
I have Laura Small on to me today. We have stem cell testing on the bridge this weekend. Please, if you're coming to the game and you're eligible and basically come along. It's painless. It's literally a couple of swabs in the cheek. It's not like a lateral flow test when COVID was rife. It only takes a couple of seconds. McKeever's Pharmacy are putting their volunteers on the bridge to do it this weekend, and it's for it's vitally important that we help if we possibly can. So if you can do it, come along. It's on the bridge at the game against Coventry on Saturday, and hopefully you can spare a couple of minutes of your time.
Fabulous stuff. Davy, anything from yourself?
2 things. Quickly, I'm going to put out this week, we've agreed with Laura, she's been down to see AJNI, and we've agreed that we're going to partner up with AJNI this year for stats based challenge, which is just going to be goals. It's going to be golden oldies. So we're going to try and raise money for AGNI, and they're going to put money directly in the grannies and grandpas' pockets that need it with this credit crunch. People that need heat in the winter, we're going to try and get cash in their pockets. So please help me, support me on that. I'll put that out on my Twitter in the next coming days. And the only other thing is it's little Pixie's birthday. I think it was either yesterday or today.
Yes, it was.
Yesterday. So happy birthday, Pixie, from all us at AVFTB Towers. Have a great day, love.
Absolutely fantastic.
Sorry, one other thing, Paddy. OSC do their first golf next Tuesday night. All the boys are going to be there. It's sold out in 20 minutes. And we've
sold out in 20 minutes.
Sold out in 20 minutes, and we've got 10 reserve teams waiting in case somebody doesn't take their place on Saturday night when they come and pay for their golf. But everybody's going on Tuesday night, so really looking forward to that as well.
Fantastic! It was good to get the OSC are getting such support for that, and it's if people want to join the OSC, I guess they can do that at the OSC desk at the home games.
No. OSC desk membership's closed at the minute because we said we basically closed it because when you announce events, everybody wants to become a member, and the events are going to be coming thick and fast this year. So we closed it to let the people have a chance who have actually been members and there are members at the minute. It might open up again, but haven't made that decision yet because they've had their opportunity at the start of the season. People just want to come when you organise an event, and it's not fair on the people who've already committed to being a member. So thanks to all the members again. The support's been absolutely brilliant, and the OSC volunteers and then all the volunteers again we talk about are absolutely brilliant this season. And Davy doing his stats has been great as well.
It's brilliant that it's getting such
team behind me.
Sorry, Davy?
I've got a team behind me. I would be wrong to take the credit for it all.
Well, that team needs a leader, Davy.
That says. He texts every week going, email every week on any chance of these stats, mate. So,
it's about 5:05 on a Saturday afternoon. He's doing it when he's sitting in just over football for Long Ashton, for goodness sake.
They're done mate, just to be tidied up and topped and tailed and sent over. A couple of wee milestones coming up, so don't like to scud them, but you'll hear about them whenever they happen soon.
Fantastic. Well, listen, let's wrap it up there, boys. Like I said, the two games for the Belfast Giants this weekend are both against the Coventry Blaze, at home on Saturday at 7 p.m. and away on Sunday at 6 p.m. Get yourself down to the SSE Arena on Saturday for that game. If you can't, join Mr. Kitchen on Giants TV. And if you're making your way over to the Sky Dome, enjoy that. And if you're not, Blaze TV for that. Big thanks to Aaron Murphy for joining us on this week's show. You can get us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and of course you can download the audio version as always on the likes of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, all that sort of stuff. You can get us kingdomofthegiants.com, and I've not done any of the TikToks, not this week. I might do that again. It was good to start it. We'll see what happens to that. Says, listen, really good to see you. Thank you for sticking with us so long after what has been a long trip to Sweden, and good luck this weekend with the commentary.
Thank you.
And Mr. Majemsi, I shall see you as always next week when maybe Mr. Neil's back. I think he's gallivanting in London this week, but we'll see what happens there. But we'll see you then. And thanks to everybody watching in and sending in your comments, your questions, and likes through the show. And wherever you are this weekend, we hope you enjoy your hockey, and we'll catch you here next time on A View from the